Hello my crafty friends and welcome back to another Mixed Media Tuesday. Today I'm going for a double page spread on my Dylusions journal, and since I cannot wait for spring, I'm going to play with flowers and butterflies. Now I will be using this huge die of a butterfly. This is from the latest collection by Bibi for Spellbinders. Her collection of butterflies is really amazing and they come in so many different sizes. You see here the set that I will be playing with. It comes with all those dies, so you get both the big dies to cut out the butterflies and you can actually turn them into a shaped butterfly card. You also do get a small butterfly as well as loads and loads of flowers and leaves. And I will combine that with a very pretty paper pad collection from Stamperia. You already know that I love their collections. This is the garden house and I'm quickly browsing through the paper so you can get an idea of what you get. If you are a beginner using a paper pad as your starting point, I think it is a great help. A paper pad like this will give you backgrounds, focal points, even words to play with. Plus they aren't expensive and you can use them for other projects as well. And now that I shared how I got inspiration for today's project, let's play. For my background I'm going the easy way. I will be using one of the pattern papers. I'm going with those blue wooden planks. I think it is such a beautiful background, however I have to sacrifice the other side. So that's why I actually grabbed two of those paper pads since they aren't expensive, especially when they are double-sided, so that I don't mind if I cut through one of them like I'm doing today. I'm going to cover up completely both my pages with this pattern paper and I'm using matte medium to stick everything down. Now instead of using pattern paper to cover up your background, the best way to go would be with rice paper, just because rice paper doesn't add bulk on your pages. I don't know if this design is actually available as a rice paper from Stamperia, I have to check that out, but in any case, since I fell in love with this pattern paper, I just had to go with it. And since I had my brush full of matte medium, I'm also covering up both pages. Let it dry and then use your scissors to cut off the excess. And for this step I always use my very big scissors, I find it easier this way. And let's move on to some of my go-to techniques. First of all, I'm going to do some stamping at the background. I'm using black Archival ink, which is going to stay permanent. This is important for the next step, you will see later on. I'm using a text stamp, and when it comes to background stamping, I find that I mainly reach for text stamps in different sizes and fonts. And now I'm going for a resist technique. I'm applying in different areas of my background some distress micro glaze. Now you can use Vaseline if you have that, or wax. In my case I don't need to apply too much because I do have a non-porous surface already. I did use matte medium, if you remember, to cover up both pages, but I'm just showing you what you can do if you are working directly on a porous surface, directly on your cardstock. Now you can go with a medium on top of your background. I'm just applying it with a spatula, and this is thick gesso. You can go with crackle paste if you like, you can use any type of modeling paste, you can even use white paint and apply it with your brush. I'm just scraping the medium there with my spatula, and trust me, I don't apply too much of that product. It looks like a lot, but trust me, it isn't. It's just how that medium is, it comes very opaque. Now, depending on how much of that white you want to see, you can leave it to dry completely. Then you can grab your baby wipe and just wipe off the excess. The baby wipe will remove any medium that stays on top of the wax, the microglaze or the Vaseline that you used for your resist technique. However, I didn't want to have too much of that white, that's why I didn't let it dry completely, and I'm going to wipe it off with my baby wipe. And here is how the background looks at the moment. I'm going to leave it aside for now and I will work on my focal points. I will use the top part of this pattern paper for die cutting my butterfly, and of course I have to sacrifice the other beautiful side. However, as I have already told you, I do get two of those paper pads so that I don't feel guilty. Now I'm going to die cut the butterfly 2 times. I'm going to stick those two butterflies together so that I end up having a butterfly with the same design front and back. Both sides of the butterfly are going to show on my finished project, but if you don't mind having different designs front and back, you can leave it as it is. I'm doing some stamping on the butterfly. Again, I'm using black Archival ink and the same text stamp that I used on the background. I will do this step front and back. Again, keep in mind that you will see both sides of the butterfly on my finished project. So the idea is to actually fold the butterfly in half at the center and then stick it at the middle of my page. Stick it there so that I will be able to open up the flaps and see what's behind those flaps. If you want, you can definitely stick the body of the butterfly at the center. I'm not going to use that. I'm going more minimalistic with the main basic shape of the butterfly. And for sticking that down, I'm going to use some hinges. I'm going to make my own hinges here. Just a couple of strips of paper that I folded in half. I am going to apply glue and stick my first hinge there. And I did actually use the same pattern paper, the scraps of this pattern paper, to create my hinges, so you will see that they match beautifully with the rest of the design. And I will repeat the same thing on the other side, on the other flap, and you can see here how it looks. This is where I'm going to apply glue only. And now I can stick it at the center of my project. Super pretty, I'm already in love with it, although I haven't decorated my butterfly yet. I'm going to leave this aside for those hinges to dry completely, and I will work on the flowers and leaves in between. From the same set as the butterfly, I did use the leaves and flowers to cut out a bunch, and I will color them all with sprays. And of course there are many different ways that you can go with. So for example, you can use pattern paper to cut out all those die cuts. You can use colored cardstock or even white cardstock and just color it in with your favorite medium. In order not to end up with a completely flat colored cutout, I do add some splatters with different colors. For example, here I'm using a brown. And once all those cutouts were completely dry, remember they get very wet from the sprays, it's time to put those flowers together, just 2 layers on them, and I'm going to keep them flat since they are going inside the book. But you can definitely go dimensional if you are making this project on a canvas, for example. And now it's time to create a couple of clusters on my 2 wings of the butterfly, just so that I can decorate it. And as you are watching how this comes together, I'm going to put on some music. In the meanwhile, don't forget to click the like button, as well as leave me a comment down below. These are just a few ways to support the channel that you like. I will catch you back once everything is done for the finishing touches. And it's time for the finishing touches. I'm going to ink up the edges of my butterfly. This is going to define it a little bit more and give that shabby chic look that I'm going for. I'm doing that with Distress Oxide ink, and of course this is Vintage Photo, one of my favorites and most used colors from the Distress line. And since I do have this detail on the edges of my butterfly, I will repeat the same detail on the edges of my actual project. I find that if I repeat the same detail on different parts of my project, the project comes together beautifully. Also, this is where I realized that I don't have centers for my flowers. There are dies that cut out centers, so I went ahead and cut out 4 of them. I'm making them up just a touch with my brush there, with the brown that I had in the brush. And I'm going to stick them down. And I love how this little detail really helps those flowers pop even more. You can see somehow it separates one from another. And because I'm never satisfied with the amount of stamping that I have on a project, I just had to go back and do some extra stamping. This time I'm using the same text stamp. This is the one that I grab all the time lately with a very small font. And I'm stamping both on the background and the butterfly, but also as I'm doing the stamping of the butterfly, I make sure that I go over some of the flowers and the leaves. And it's time for some doodling. I'm going to use my set of brushes. This is a set that I have for a lot of time. I like it because it comes with lots of different nibs. You see, for example, here I grabbed a bigger one and I'm going for a smaller actually. These are the finishing line pens from the Jane Davenport collection for spellbinders. I have them for years, and if you do take a good care of your pens, they're going to last you for a long time. Just make sure that you never touch the nib of those pens with acrylic paint or with any other ink that isn't dry completely. So all I'm doing here is going with sketchy lines around my cutouts. This is going to define them even more. And I will do the same thing for the edges of my butterfly. I will do that only on the front. I'm not going to repeat that for the back. And this is when I don't want to stop. I'm having just a lot of fun playing on my page with my mediums, and I can go on and on with little details. I'm also going to add some highlights with my white gel pen. Again, one of my go-to techniques. I absolutely love the look of that, and that's why I cannot stay away from my white gel pen. Now I'm going to add some splashes. For that I will be using this white spray. This is white acrylic paint, and I don't care if the splashes go over the flower compositions. I will also make sure that I add a few at the back of the butterfly. On my art journals I always like to add a motivational quote. This time I'm going with one from the pattern paper. And there is a whole page with quotes and words that you can use on your projects. I went with "Let your dreams bloom." You can place it on top of your butterfly, at the back of your butterfly, showing just a little bit. But I decided to separate all those words, so you can see I'm using my scissors there, so that I can stick them in different areas. And the word bloom is going on top of my butterfly. The word let is going on top of my background, as if it's coming from the back of the butterfly. And then the rest I'm going to stick them on the back flap. So you actually have to interact with the project to read the whole quote. I did use my white gel pen to outline these words, and I'm going to call this project done. So that's it for today. Just like always, down below in the description area you will find links to all the products that I used for today's project. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired, and that you will all have a lovely day.